He lost everything, until the alien bride everyone rejected knocked on his door. Ethan Cole hated the starport. The noise, the push of bodies, the smell of hot metal and old fuel. 6 years on Meridian 12 and it still felt like a bad dream he could not wake from. But the farm needed seed and the seed came here. Last season had failed. One more failure and he would lose everything his hands had built. He checked his cargo notice again. Wheat substitute, drought-safe, heliograde. Late as always. He rubbed a tired line on his brow and turned toward the freight bays. Then he saw her. She stood alone near the passenger gates, still as a stone in a river. Her skin was a soft dusk blue, not bright, not dull, like evening sky before the first star. Silver hair was tied back in a neat band. Violet eyes watched the floor. 2 heavy cases sat by her boots. She wore a simple dark tunic and a light apron. Contract clothes. Bonded companion arrival kit. Ethan had seen that look before. Hope packed in a suitcase. Fear hiding under polite manners. He almost kept walking. He did not have room in his life for other people's trouble. He had land to save. But something in her posture, pride trying to stand tall over fresh hurt, pulled him off his path. "You all right?" he asked. His voice came out rough. She blinked, surprised that anyone had spoken kindly. "Yes," she said in careful trade. "I am fine. I am waiting. How long?" 3 hours. Her mouth tried a small smile and failed. "My sponsor came." He looked at me. He left. He said I was not as listed. Too heavy. Ethan's jaw set. He took in her shape. Strong. Curved. Real. "That's cruel," he said. "And stupid." Her eyes lifted. They were very clear. "There is no refund," she said softly. "No return ticket. What's your name?" "Sarah Vey," she said. "Of the Cerulean Spire Worlds." "Ethan Cole," he said. "I run a farm. 30 kilometers out." He heard the next words before he chose them. "I've got a spare room. You can stay a few nights while you plan. No strings. If you want to help to earn your keep, that's fine. If not, that's fine too." Sarah watched him for a long breath like a scientist checking a sample. She searched for the hidden hook. She did not find one. She gave a small nod. "I accept." They walked through the busy terminal together. People stared, some out of simple curiosity, some with small mean smiles. Ethan did not look back at any of them. The road home was red dust and low hills. 2 pale moons rose in the afternoon. Sarah asked about the scrub trees and the red grass. Ethan answered. Her questions were sharp and gentle at once. She said his land looked peaceful. He felt the knot in his chest loosen a little. His house was plain. Prefab walls, wide porch, a barn and sheds, 20 hectares of stubborn soil. "It isn't fancy," he said. "It is honest," Sarah said. "I like it." Ethan showed her the spare room. Clean sheets. A small window facing the orchard. He went to make coffee and stood a moment in the quiet kitchen. For 3 years the house had been silent. Now he could hear another person moving. It was strange. It was good. He woke before dawn, as always. He smelled spice. In the kitchen, Sarah stood at the stove. The same clothes, washed and neat. She held a spatula in a blue hand. "I rise with first light," she said. "I hope I did not wake you." "I'm always up," Ethan said. "You didn't have to cook." "I wanted to," she said. On the plate were scrambled eggs with a faint purple tint. "Cerulean spice," she explained. "It is mild." He tasted. Sweet and warm. "It's good," he said, surprised by joy in a small thing. They ate in quiet comfort. Sunlight touched the edge of her hair and set a silver glow around it. "I would like to see your field," Sarah said. "Perhaps I can help." They crossed to the eastern plots. The air held the clean bite of morning. Ethan bent to a row of young shoots. The leaves were yellowing at the tips. The growth looked tired. He had told himself it was weather. Now he could not lie. Sarah knelt. Her movements were steady and exact. "May I?" she asked. He nodded. She lifted one seedling with care and brushed soil from the roots. Her brow tightened. "These roots are attacked," she said. "A parasite. Very small. Very hungry." "The soil was sterilized when this moon was made ready," Ethan said. "Not perfectly," Sarah said. "Or something learned to live in the gaps." They checked more rows. They took samples. Back in the shed, Ethan's old microscope hummed to life. Sarah worked with quiet skill. He watched her hands. He watched the screen. Thread-thin shapes wove through the root tissues like ghost worms. "This is not wild," Sarah said at last. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were hard. "This is engineered. It knows the food humans eat. It knows how to ruin it." Ethan felt the floor tilt under his boots. The late shipment. The failing growth. The empty bank account waiting at the end of the season. He looked at the blue woman who had been left at a gate like a wrong parcel. She looked back without fear. "I can try to build a shield for the soil," Sarah said. "I will need time. And a rare catalyst." Ethan nodded once. A decision set in his bones. "Tell me what to get," he said. "Tell me where to go." Outside, the twin moons climbed the pale sky. The wind ran through red grass like a warning. Far off, a shuttle crossed the horizon, bright and small. Trouble was coming. The land was already under attack. And for the first time in a long time, Ethan Cole did not feel alone. The next morning broke under a thin red sky. The air above Meridian 12 shimmered with the heat of two suns, and Ethan Cole's fields looked wrong in that light. Too pale, too quiet. The crops were fading faster than he dared admit. Sarah was already outside when he stepped onto the porch. She moved through the rows like she belonged there, her blue skin glowing faintly under dawn. In her hands, the small scanner from her luggage clicked softly. "Half of your eastern section is infected," she said, not looking up. "Whatever's killing the roots is spreading." Ethan frowned. Could it be bad fertilizer? "The batch was new," she shook her head. "No, the chemical balance is fine. This is alive." "Engineered alive," he blinked. "Engineered?" Sarah nodded once, lips pressed tight. "Something made this. It doesn't belong to this planet." That word, made, landed hard in Ethan's chest. Out here, everything humans grew came from Earth's genetic banks. If someone had tampered with the seeds, it meant sabotage. They spent hours collecting more samples. Sarah handled each plant like it was fragile glass, cutting, labeling, sealing. Ethan watched the way she focused, how her fingers never trembled. "You've done this before," he said. "On my world," she replied quietly. "We had agricultural wars. Crops poisoned, lands turned sterile. I studied how to stop it." She gave a small, sad smile. "I hoped never to use that knowledge again." When the samples were packed, Ethan loaded them into his transport. "We'll take them to the Colony Ag Center. They've got better scanners." The ride was long and silent except for the hum of the engine. Meridian 12 stretched around them. Red plains, glassy ridges, and far off the shadow of orbital elevators like thin towers reaching for heaven. Sarah watched everything through the window, eyes wide with a kind of calm wonder. "You came all this way," Ethan said after a while, "for someone who didn't even show up." Sarah's gaze stayed on the horizon. "On Cerulia, we're told there's purpose in partnership. If you remain unpaired, you're incomplete. I thought perhaps a human would see me differently." Ethan tightened his hands on the controls. "Well, whoever that sponsor was, he's blind." She turned to look at him, surprised, then smiled. Soft, uncertain, but real. At the Ag Center, a technician named Kellen met them. He was pale, wiry, and jittery from too much caffeine. He frowned at the microscope feed. "Weird," he muttered. "Looks like a Terran fungus, but nothing Earth-based should even live here." He scratched his head. "I'll run a deep scan. Leave me the samples. I'll calm you in a few days." Back at the transport, Sarah's eyes followed a freighter lifting into orbit. "If it truly is engineered, it will not stop at your farm," she said. "It will move, and someone will profit." Ethan looked at her sharply. "You think this is corporate?" She gave a slow nod. "Always follow the contracts." That night, the wind howled through the metal roof. Ethan couldn't sleep. He poured himself coffee and stared at the data pad full of bills. Fertilizer costs, repair costs, shipping costs, all owed to one supplier, Helioseed. At dawn, Kellen's message came through, his voice shaky and low. "Ethan, listen. The organism's not natural. It's registered Heliobiocode version 3, someone selling infected seed stock. 3 other colonies just reported total crop loss. The authorities calling it localized failure, but it's sabotage, Ethan. It's deliberate." Ethan stared at the screen. His breath came slow. "Can you prove it?" "I'm trying," Kellen said, glancing off-screen as if afraid of being overheard. "But if you hear from me again, it means I'm still breathing." The transmission cut out. Ethan stood there for a long moment before turning toward the fields. Sarah was already there, her hair catching the early light like silver fire. He says the infection is man-made, Ethan told her. She didn't look surprised. Then the question is, why target humans? Ethan exhaled, the sound harsh in the empty air. Because we're growing too well. Sarah crouched beside the soil and pressed her palm into the dirt. Then we fight back, she said simply. But to do that I need a rare element, trihex cobalt. It stabilizes the enzyme I must build. It exists only in the northern ridges. That's scavenger country, Ethan said. You go there, you risk not coming back. Then we go together, she said, meeting his eyes. If your world is dying, it's not just your fight anymore. For the first time in years, Ethan felt that word again. We. He looked out across the dying crops, their leaves shivering under the red morning wind. Something in him hardened, sharp and alive. All right, he said. We go tomorrow. Above them, a shuttle streaked across the pale sky, its path gleaming like a scar. Neither of them noticed the faint black drone hovering high above the farm, recording everything. The battle for Meridian 12 had already begun. The day began quiet. Too quiet. Ethan Cole stood by his transport, loading supplies while the morning wind pushed red dust in slow curls around his boots. The suns were still low, throwing long twin shadows across the fields. Behind him, the last of the healthy stock swayed in silence. Sarah approached, carrying a scanner and a small pack slung across her shoulder. She wore a gray work jacket that hung a little loose, sleeves rolled to her elbows. Her silver hair was tied high, but a few strands glimmered in the light. You still sure about this? Ethan asked. Yes, she said. The infection won't stop unless we do something. The northern ridge is dangerous, but trihex cobalt is our only chance. Ethan nodded. Then we go fast and come back faster. They left before sunrise, the vehicle bouncing over cracked dirt and rock plains. Meridian 12's landscape was beautiful in its own hard way. Red ridges carved by ancient wind, purple moss clinging to cliffs, and a sky so wide it could swallow a man whole. But it was empty. Too empty. Why did you really come to a human world? Ethan asked, suddenly breaking the silence. Sarah didn't answer at first. She watched the road unwind before them. On Cerulia, she said quietly, I was a researcher. I questioned our programs. We were changing life forms too easily, reshaping nature for profit. When I spoke against it, they labeled me unstable. So I left. Ethan looked at her, really looked. There was strength there, a deep, tired courage. You sound more human than most humans I know. She smiled faintly. Maybe that's why they didn't want me. The vehicle climbed higher into the ridge. The terrain turned sharp and narrow. Wind howled through stone arches. Hollow markers warned of scavenger packs, feral beasts that hunted anything that moved. Ethan slowed the transport. Once we're close, we go on foot, he said. Engines draw them. They parked behind a rock shelf and packed what they could carry. Scanner, weapon, samples case. The air here was thinner, colder. Ethan checked his rifle's charge. Sarah noticed. You've done this before, she said. Too many times, he replied. I served during the Proxima skirmishes. Different world, same kind of silence before danger. They followed the ravine path, their boots crunching over gravel. Sarah's scanner beeped occasionally, signaling traces of cobalt deeper in the ridge. Another kilometer, she said, but the ridge wasn't empty. Halfway through a narrow pass, Ethan froze. A low guttural clicking echoed through the canyon walls. The sound crawled up his spine. Scavengers, he whispered. Sarah's eyes widened. She switched off her scanner. The clicking grew louder, circling them like whispers. They crouched behind a rock ledge. Shapes moved in the red mist, thin bodies with glassy skin and glowing eyes. They hunt by vibration, Ethan murmured. Stay still, minutes passed like hours. The air was thick with dust and fear. One of the creatures crept closer, its nostrils flaring. It sniffed the air, then turned toward the ravine wall and hissed. Another answered. Then, as suddenly as they appeared, they retreated into the mist, vanishing between rocks. Sarah exhaled slowly. They're leaving. For now, Ethan said. Let's move. They found the cobalt vein near a collapsed tunnel. The mineral shimmered like liquid fire beneath a layer of crystal. Sarah crouched and began cutting samples with delicate precision. Ethan kept watch, scanning the horizon. That's enough, she said finally, sealing the last container. We have what we need. Ethan turned, about to answer, but a faint hum in the air made him stop. The hum grew louder. It wasn't wind. It was engines. A sleek shuttle appeared over the ridge, its hull marked with the black and silver emblem of the Colonial Agricultural Division. Sarah's face went cold. Authority? More like their lapdogs, Ethan muttered. They shouldn't know we're here. The shuttle descended slowly, kicking up waves of dust. A metallic voice echoed through a loudspeaker. Unauthorized excavation detected. You are violating planetary quarantine orders. Surrender immediately. Sarah looked at Ethan. They tracked us. He nodded grimly. Someone at the Ag Center tipped them off. The shuttle's landing ramp lowered. 3 figures stepped out. 2 humans in combat armor and a tall alien with ridged skin and narrow eyes. The leader's voice boomed again, this time without the speaker. Captain Rail, Colonial Authority. You are trespassing in restricted territory. Ethan gripped his rifle. Restricted my ass. This is my planet, not anymore, Rail replied. By decree, all agricultural operations are under investigation. Sarah's hand brushed Ethan's arm. Don't fire, she whispered. Not yet. He glanced at her. Her violet eyes burned with calm defiance. She lifted a small device from her belt, a compact cylinder with a blinking light. What is that? Ethan asked. Plan B, she said, pressing a sequence of buttons. The ground shuddered. A controlled detonation burst open the rock behind them, revealing a narrow fissure that led into darkness. Ethan stared. You planted a charge? Sarah gave a quick grin. Cerulean scientists believe in preparation, the soldiers shouted. Blaster fire ripped through the dust. Ethan grabbed Sarah's hand, pulling her toward the fissure. The two dove into the opening as stones crashed around them. Inside, the cave was dark and wet, the air echoing with the roar of underground water. Behind them, the soldiers' voices faded. They had vanished into the maze below the ridge. Ethan leaned against the rock, catching his breath. Remind me never to underestimate you again. Sarah's grin was small but fierce. I'll take that as a compliment. He looked at her through the dim blue light of her scanner. You saved our lives. No, she said softly. Not yet. We still have to save your world. Outside, the wind screamed across the ridge while the shuttle hovered above, scanning for life signs. But the cave swallowed all trace of them. 2 fugitives, carrying the only hope for a dying planet, and somewhere far away, someone at Helioseed was already watching their every move. The cave swallowed them whole. Darkness pressed close, heavy and damp, the kind that seemed to breathe against the skin. Ethan Cole switched on his wrist lamp, throwing pale light across the tunnel walls. The rock glittered with cobalt traces, blue veins glowing faintly like stars caught in stone. Sarah moved ahead of him, sure-footed and calm. Her scanner hummed softly, tracking oxygen and heat. These tunnels are old, she said. Pre-colonial. Maybe natural, maybe not. Not? Ethan asked. Some cerulean designs used resonant carving, machines that cut through stone using sound. If settlers reused them, they wouldn't even know. The thought made him glance around uneasily. The place didn't feel natural. The curves were too smooth, too deliberate. They walked for hours, the tunnel sloping deeper. The air grew colder, thinner. From somewhere far below came a low hum, like the distant heartbeat of the planet. Ethan had seen a lot of strange things in his life, but this place felt alive. When they stopped to rest, he offered her his canteen. Sarah drank, then handed it back, her fingers brushing his. The touch lingered a second too long. You don't talk much, she said quietly. Talking never fixed anything, Ethan replied. She tilted her head. It might if you talked to the right person. He looked at her, blue skin glowing softly in the light, violet eyes calm and steady. Maybe, he said, but I've never been good at finding those. She smiled faintly and stood. Come on. We're close to the ridge core. When they reached the lower caverns, the tunnel opened into a vast hollow chamber. Ethan stopped dead. Before them stretched what looked like a city built into the stone, a maze of smooth columns, arched bridges, and crystalline platforms suspended over black water. Faint bioluminescent vines climbed the walls, painting everything in shades of silver and green. Sarah's breath caught. This isn't human work, she whispered. And not cerulean either. This is older. Ethan frowned. Older than both our worlds? Possibly. There were races here before the frontier expansions. They vanished, but their structures sometimes remain. She ran her hand across a nearby column. This alloy, it's absorbing radiation. Maybe the cobalt grew here because of it. They collected samples quickly, working in tense silence. Every sound echoed like thunder. When Ethan turned back toward the tunnel, he froze. A faint light flickered across the walls, white, mechanical, moving. "Someone's here," he muttered. They ducked behind a fallen column. Through the dim haze, a drone drifted into the chamber, sleek, triangular, marked with the insignia of the Colonial Agricultural Division. Its sensors swept across the floor, beaming out scanning pulses. Sarah whispered, "They followed us through the fissure." Ethan's mind raced. If the drone found them, Rail's soldiers wouldn't be far behind. He spotted a metal walkway above, leading toward another exit. "There," he said. "Go." They climbed quickly, careful to stay out of the drone's light. Metal groaned beneath Ethan's boots. Halfway across, the beam caught the edge of his rifle. The drone's sensors whirred and locked on. "Run!" he barked. The air filled with sharp bursts of plasma fire. Bolts struck the stone behind them, sending shards of crystal flying. Sarah didn't scream. She just grabbed Ethan's arm and pulled him toward the exit. He returned fire once, a single clean shot that hit the drone squarely in its sensor core. The machine whined, sparks erupted, and it fell into the dark water below with a hiss. They kept running until the light behind them was gone. When they finally stopped, Ethan's chest burned from exertion. "You all right?" he asked. "Yes," Sarah said between breaths. "But they'll know we're alive now." "Good," Ethan said grimly. "Let them come. We've got proof they're tracking us off the grid." Sarah shook her head. "No, you don't understand. They'll erase this whole region if they think it holds evidence. They'll call it a containment strike." The words hung heavy between them. Meridian 12 wasn't just another farm world. It was home to thousands of settlers, and now it was marked for cleansing. Ethan's jaw tightened. "Then we move before they do." They followed a narrow side tunnel that sloped upward. The rock began to change, less metallic, more natural. A faint draft kissed Ethan's face. "We're close to the surface," he said. Sarah stopped suddenly and held out her arm. "Wait." Ahead, the tunnel opened into a wide shaft filled with strange glowing growths, like translucent coral pulsing with faint light. Sarah stepped closer, awe in her voice. "This is living cobalt. It's self-charging, almost sentient. No wonder the readings were strong." She took a sample carefully, sealing it inside a reinforced case. This much energy could neutralize the pathogen entirely. Ethan grinned despite the tension. "Then we've got what we came for." But as they reached the surface, the night sky above wasn't quiet anymore. High above the ridge, multiple lights streaked through the atmosphere. Authority dropships descending fast, engines flaring like angry stars. Sarah's eyes widened. "They're coming in numbers." Ethan loaded his rifle and looked toward the horizon where his farm lay somewhere beyond the hills. "Then we don't stop now," he said. "We take this back, we make the cure, and we show them what humans do when someone tries to starve us out." The ridge thundered with distant explosions as they climbed into their transport. Red dust swirled under the twin moons, and in that moment, Ethan Cole realized something had shifted. This wasn't just survival anymore. This was war. The night bled into morning as Ethan Cole's transport tore across the plains, engines whining under strain. The twin suns of Meridian 12 were climbing over the horizon, painting the land in streaks of copper and gold. Behind them, columns of smoke rose from the northern ridge, where the Authority dropships were landing. Sarah Vey sat beside him, holding the sealed cobalt sample close like it was a newborn. "They'll track the radiation," she said quietly. "We can't outrun their sensors." Ethan's eyes stayed on the road. "Then we don't run." She looked at him. "What do you mean?" "We fight smarter," he said. "Pine Hollow has old mining tunnels beneath it. Ruth Calder's people used them years ago. If we reach them first, we can hide the sample, build the cure, and strike from underground." Sarah didn't argue. She just nodded once, her expression calm but her fingers gripping the sample tight. The transport hit the outskirts of Pine Hollow just as dawn split the sky. The settlement was already awake, sirens wailing, children being pulled inside shelters, farmers running to barricade the main gates. Dust clouded the air as other transports arrived from nearby farms, bringing families, tools, and weapons. Ruth Calder was waiting by the central tower, shotgun slung across her shoulder, her eyes sharp as steel. "You brought trouble, Cole," she said, "but I can't say I'm surprised." Ethan jumped down, tossing her a data chip. "Evidence. Helio Seed's been selling infected seed stock. The Authority's covering for them. Sarah can prove it." Ruth raised an eyebrow at the blue-skinned scientist. "You're the cerulean they've been chasing?" Sarah's chin lifted. The one who can save your crops. Ruth's grin was small but fierce. Then you're welcome here. Within minutes, the town transformed. Old farm trucks were lined across the entrance as barricades. Solar batteries were stripped from rooftops to power shields. Drones buzzed above, relaying movement from the northern ridge. The settlers worked like they'd rehearsed this 100 times, because every colonist on the frontier knew how quickly the stars could turn against them. Ethan and Sarah set up in the underground lab beneath the community hall. It smelled of oil and dust. The walls were lined with tools and broken harvesters, relics of better years. Sarah unpacked the glowing cobalt carefully, connecting it to a portable reactor. This compound can neutralize the pathogen, she explained, adjusting the calibration dials. But I'll need to mix it with living soil to stabilize it. Once it bonds, it can spread like roots, curing as it grows. Ethan watched her work, her hands steady despite the tremor of explosions rumbling faintly above. You've done this before, he said. Yes, she murmured, but never with someone watching so closely. He smiled faintly. Then get used to it. Hours passed. The suns rose higher and the rumble outside grew louder. Through the floor, they could feel the vibration of dropships landing nearby. Ruth's voice crackled through the comm. They're surrounding the outer fence. Half human, half Vexian troops. They're demanding we surrender anyone harboring stolen property. Ethan keyed the mic. Tell them we misplaced it. Already did, Ruth said. Didn't help. Sarah glanced at him. They'll breach soon. Let them try, Ethan said, checking his rifle. Suddenly the lights flickered. The generator coughed. A shadow passed over the skylight. Then impact. The ground shook violently. The ceiling cracked, spilling dust. They're bombing the ridge outside. Ruth shouted over the channel. Sarah steadied the reactor. If the power fails now, the formula will collapse. Ethan grabbed a manual crank from the wall and locked it into the generator slot. Keep mixing, he said. I'll keep it alive. He turned the crank with both hands. The machine groaned. Lights pulsed weakly back to life. Sweat dripped down his neck. Sarah glanced up once, seeing the veins in his forearms tighten with each rotation. You're mad, she said softly. Probably, he grunted. But it works. The ground trembled again, closer this time. Outside, the sounds of firefights echoed. Ruth's voice came through the static. Cole, they're breaching the gate. Ethan shouted back, Hold them. Just 10 more minutes. Sarah's voice was steady now. 5, I only need 5. Time stretched thin. The hum of the generator, the hiss of plasma fire, the pounding of boots above, it all blended into one heartbeat. Then at last, Sarah's voice broke through. It's done. The reactor pulsed bright blue, flooding the lab with light. Sarah held up a vial, liquid glowing like captured starlight. The cure, she said. We can save the planet. Ethan barely had time to smile before the door above them burst open. Soldiers poured in, 3 humans and a Vexian commander with jagged armor. The lead soldier barked, Hands where I can see them. Ethan raised his rifle halfway. You'll have to kill us first. The Vexian's cold eyes fixed on Sarah. The scientist alive. Ethan moved before he thought. He slammed his shoulder into the nearest soldier, firing point blank. Blue plasma lit the room. Chaos exploded. Sarah ducked, clutching the vial. Ethan shouted, Go! Through the back tunnel. She hesitated. Ethan, now! He roared. Sarah ran, disappearing into the narrow maintenance shaft. Ethan fired again, covering her retreat. 2 soldiers dropped. The Vexian lunged forward, striking Ethan across the chest with a metal gauntlet. Pain shot through him. He stumbled but stayed standing. The alien hissed, You can't save them, human. Ethan spat blood, raised his rifle, and smiled grimly. Watch me. The shot echoed like thunder. Above ground, Sarah emerged through a maintenance hatch, clutching the glowing vial against her chest. The sky above Pine Hollow burned with streaks of red and silver. Dropships circled like vultures. She didn't look back. She just whispered, Hold on, Ethan. And she ran, carrying humanity's last hope into the burning dawn. Smoke rolled over Pine Hollow like a living thing. The twin suns hung high and harsh, cutting through the haze in shards of light. The settlement burned at its edges, walls glowing with heat, metal cracking under stress. Every sound was war. Drones whining overhead, rifles screaming, people shouting orders through static. Sarah Vey stumbled through the chaos, clutching the glowing vial of cure tight against her chest. Her lungs ached from smoke and dust, but she didn't stop. She could not. Ethan was still below, buying her minutes with his life. She had to make those minutes worth something. She reached the old solar tower at the center of the settlement, a skeleton of rust and glass that still stood taller than anything else around. It had once powered half the valley. Now it would become her transmitter. Inside, the corridors smelled of oil and ozone. The backup console blinked weakly, half dead but functional. She slid the vial into a containment slot beside the data port. The reactor's hum deepened as the machine recognized new energy. The vial's blue glow spread across the panel like veins of light. If I amplify the cure through the irrigation system, she whispered to herself, it can reach every farm in this hemisphere within hours. Her hands flew across the console, bypassing security locks and rerouting channels. Cerulean fingers moved with practiced grace, her breath sinking to the rhythm of code. Then a voice behind her made her freeze. You shouldn't have come back here. She turned. Captain Rail stepped from the shadows, armor blackened from fire but his stance unbroken. His Vexian eyes were like narrow cuts of obsidian. 2 armed troopers flanked him. Sarah straightened. You destroyed the ridge. You burned the farms. Why? Rail's tone was almost bored. Because order must be maintained. Human expansion threatens balance. Too many mouths, too little control. Helioseed offered a correction. I agreed. A correction? She said, fury trembling in her voice. You call starving entire colonies balance? Survival, he said simply. Ours, not yours. Sarah's gaze hardened. Then you'll fail. Before Rail could reply, a deafening crash shook the building. The side wall exploded inward, scattering shards of metal and fire. Ethan Cole stepped through the smoke, his face smeared with soot, uniform torn, one arm bleeding but alive. Rail's soldiers raised their weapons, but Ethan moved faster. 2 quick shots dropped them. Guess you missed one farmer, he said through gritted teeth. Rail hissed. You should be dead. Been hearing that for years, Ethan growled. Sarah darted to his side, eyes wide. You're hurt. Later, he said. You finished the broadcast? Almost. Then let's end this. Rail lunged first. The alien was fast, too fast. His strike caught Ethan's shoulder, sending sparks off the metal railing. Ethan countered with a hard swing of his rifle stock, slamming Rail into the wall. The captain roared and lashed out again, claws raking across Ethan's vest. Sarah shouted, Ethan! I'm fine. He barked back, though blood dripped down his side. Get that cure online. Sarah turned back to the console, fingers flying. Behind her, the fight crashed through the tower, metal screeching, glass shattering. She rerouted the final circuit and slammed the activation lever down. The lights flared white-hot. Outside, irrigation towers all across Pine Hollow lit up in a chain reaction, blue energy rippling outward through the soil. The cure, her cure, was spreading. Rail saw the light and howled. You've doomed us all. Ethan ducked under his strike and fired point blank. The plasma bolt hit Rail square in the chest. The alien staggered, smoke pouring from the wound, then fell hard, his armor cracking as the tower floor gave a final groan beneath them. Ethan limped toward Sarah. The air smelled of ozone and burnt metal. Tell me it worked, he said. She stared at the holographic map flickering before them. Across the region, signals pulsed blue. Farms, rivers, fields, everywhere the soil had been poisoned now shimmered with light. It's working, she whispered. The pathogen's dying. Ethan exhaled, leaning against the console, a tired smile cutting through the soot. Then we did it, but their victory wasn't quiet. Alarms wailed through the tower. A new transmission broke through the static. A human voice this time, cold and official. This is Admiral Keene of the Colonial Authority. All Helioseed operations are suspended pending investigation. Captain Rail's orders are void. Surrender your location for immediate extraction. Sarah looked at Ethan. Extraction? He shook his head. No. Cleanup. They'll call this a containment accident, bury the truth. Then we give them the truth first, she said. She pulled a small disk from her belt, the data Kellen had hidden. The files that proved everything. Helioseed's experiments, Rail's orders, and the authorities' silence. She slammed it into the transmitter port. The hologram glowed brighter. Uploading to public channels, she said. They can't erase it now. Outside, the winds picked up, carrying blue dust through the air. The cure drifted like fireflies, settling into the red soil of Meridian 12. Crops that had withered for months began to shimmer with new growth. Ethan stared at the horizon through a broken window. Looks like your science just saved a planet. Sarah smiled softly, exhaustion in every line of her face. No, she said. Our will did. He turned to her. For a moment, the chaos around them disappeared. There was just the hum of the tower and the light of new life spreading below. You think they'll come for us? He asked. Of course, she said, a faint laugh escaping her. Heroes always cause paperwork. They both smiled then, tired, battered, alive as the suns rose higher over Pine Hollow. Blue light shimmered across the plains where death had lived only hours before. For the first time in years, the land of Meridian 12 was breathing again. But in orbit above the planet, far beyond their sight, a new transmission blinked open on a dark console, an unknown voice whispering, Phase 1 failed. Prepare Phase 2, and the screen went black. The war ended not with explosions, but with silence. For the first time in months, Meridian 12 was quiet. No alarms, no thunder of ships in the sky, only the sound of wind whispering across fields that were green again. Ethan Cole stood on the porch of what was left of his farmhouse. The boards were scorched, the windows cracked, but the land, his land, was alive. The soil shimmered faintly blue where Sarah's cure had taken root, glowing like veins of light beneath the surface. Crops moved with the wind, thick and strong. Life had come back. Behind him, the door opened with a soft hiss. Sarah Vey stepped out, wearing one of Ethan's spare shirts rolled up at the sleeves, her silver hair braided loosely over one shoulder. Her violet eyes reflected the sunrise. You're up early, she said. Ethan smiled faintly. Old habits? The farm doesn't care if there was a war. Sarah joined him at the railing, watching the fields stretch out to the horizon. For a while, they didn't speak. They didn't need to. The quiet itself was healing. Finally, she said softly, the authority broadcast reached every colony. Your face and mine. They're calling us criminals and heroes at the same time. Ethan chuckled under his breath. That sounds about right. They can't hide it anymore, she continued. The files Kellen collected are public. Helioseed collapsed overnight. The Colonial Board has ordered a full tribunal. They'll send a real governor to Meridian 12. Good, Ethan said. Maybe someone will plant sense instead of greed this time. She looked at him then, her expression gentler. And what will you plant, Ethan Cole? He leaned on the railing, gazing at the horizon where the two suns burned low in the sky. Something new, he said. Something worth keeping alive. Sarah smiled, but it faded as she noticed the distant glow in orbit, a faint shimmer like a scar across the sky. Phase 2, she whispered, remembering Rail's final words before he fell. Do you think it's true? That there's more coming? Ethan followed her gaze. Maybe, but we'll be ready this time. He turned toward her then, serious now. I don't know if I've said this right before, Sarah, but you saved all of us, she shook her head. We saved each other. You gave me something to believe in again. When I left Cerulia, I thought I'd never find a place that would want me as I am. But you looked past that the moment you offered me a home. Ethan smiled softly. You weren't the only one who needed saving. The wind shifted, warm and alive. The farm's irrigation lines hissed as new water flowed through them, clear, clean, mixed with her cure. Life reborn. Then, from the distance, came the hum of engines. A shuttle, small and unarmed, approached low across the fields. Its hull bore the new insignia of the Interplanetary Reconstruction Council. Sarah tensed. Authority? Ethan shook his head. No, the council's separate now. Maybe the good kind of bureaucracy for once. The shuttle landed near the barn, sending a wave of dust across the fields. A ramp lowered and a woman in a gray uniform stepped out. She looked young but carried herself like someone who'd seen too much. Ethan Cole, Sarah Vey? She called. That depends who's asking, Ethan said. The woman smiled faintly. Commander Adira Holt, Council Envoy. I'm here to confirm your findings and to ask for your help. The cure you created, it's working beyond Meridian 12. But we've detected the same pathogen on 2 other colonies. We want you both to lead the Frontier Restoration Division. Sarah blinked. You want us to fix your mess? Adira nodded. No, we want you to help us stop whoever's still making it. Ethan exchanged a look with Sarah. He could see the same spark in her eyes that had burned the night they faced Rails, soldiers, the fire that refused to die. You in? He asked. Sarah took a slow breath, then smiled. I was never out. Adira extended a small badge, a silver emblem shaped like a seed surrounded by a ring of stars. Sarah accepted it, the metal warm in her hand. "When do we leave?" Ethan asked. Adira glanced at the suns rising higher over the farmland. "Now. The next world's already fading." Sarah looked back at the farmhouse, at the repaired windows, the patched roof, the rows of green stretching to the horizon. "Will it survive without us?" Ethan followed her gaze. "It will. That's what we built it for." As they boarded the shuttle, the air shimmered blue where the cure continued to spread, weaving through the soil like veins of light. The engines flared, lifting them slowly into the sky. Through the window, Meridian 12 looked small but alive, a planet that had died once, and been reborn through two unlikely souls who refused to give up. Sarah reached out and rested her hand over Ethan's. "Do you think humanity will ever stop fighting to survive?" she asked quietly. Ethan looked down at their joined hands, then out at the stars. "No," he said. "That's what makes us human." The shuttle broke through the clouds into the dark sea of space. Ahead of them, distant planets shimmered faintly, waiting. And behind them, on a once-forgotten world, the wind moved through green fields that whispered the beginning of a new age. Humanity had planted again, this time, hope.